Today in the AWS Developers Podcast, we're talking about automation for your IAM policies across multiple AWS accounts. It seems a bit scary. Don't worry, it's not. We're going to explain all that. Hello, good morning. Thank you for joining us in the AWS Developers Podcast. We're available in all good podcast applications, Amazon Music, Deezer, Spotify, on YouTube, also Apple Podcasts. It's where the majority of you are listening. Please register, subscribe, leave us a thumbs up, a little star, and be sure to receive new episode every Friday morning in your podcast application. Today we are going to talk about automation of securities policies in a multi-account environment, and to talk about that, to explain why and how and why we should automate that, I have the pleasure to welcome my guest today, Ran Isenberg, your principal software architect at CyberArk. You're in the platform engineering team, also AWS serverless hero, very active on social network. I can read your posts very frequently, several times per week. You also are called Ran the Builder. Why?
Yeah, hi, Sebastian. Thanks for having me. Ran the Builder is because I used to be a community builder before I was a AWS hero. And people at work used to tease me, you're Ran the Builder. And because they didn't fully understand what it means to be a community builder. So when I built my own website, I said, you know what? Let's own it and let's use this nickname that I got and just build this as a domain, and it really stuck. And people tell me it's a really good nickname.
And in the notes of this episode in your podcast application, you will find the link to the website. So, what is CyberArk?
CyberArk. Well, we're a cybersecurity company. We're the global leaders in identity security, and we specialize in securing privileged access. Our solutions help organizations protect their most critical assets by managing identities, securing credentials, and providing access to their protected resources or machines, whether they're on different cloud providers, AWS, Azure, or GCP, or on-premise. And I think for the context of this podcast, it's important to keep in mind that we have over 3,500 employees, 1,000 developers, and that we are a serverless first SaaS provider. And I think this will help to understand the challenges that we're discussing here today.
And what is the challenge? So you have a large SaaS, couple of APIs that you're providing, selling to your customer. Some of these are deployed on AWS. What is the technical challenge that makes you start thinking about this automation process we're talking about today?
Great question. So I think it's not really about us being a SaaS. It's about us using and deploying services across multiple AWS accounts. So I come from the platform engineering side of things. My job is to help the teams at CyberArk accelerate the development, to increase the adoption of serverless, to make their lives easier, and also to make sure that everybody is using the best practices. We have governance and security at place, and also to build services for our customers that help them basically have a better experience. So part of that is also building the SaaS control plane, or the first service that we started was the tenant management service, or the customer onboarding service. So every new customer, we build their tenant. It's basically a set of services, and they have each tenant has its own subdomain. It's deployed in a region, and it's a set of services. I don't know if you can hear my cat in the background.
We can, but that's okay. Don't worry.
Okay. He always has to do this when I record. So the tenant management service, basically we provide the customers with multiple services that they purchase. And every service, business service in the background is, in the end, it's going to be deployed on a different AWS account.
Every time you onboard a new customer, you create a separate AWS account for that customer.
So, good question. No, we use the pool model, where we use the same Lambda function, the same DynamoDB table for for all tenants, and we have a strict tenant isolation SDK. It's all very secure and it works great. What I mean by that is that our business services, they use different AWS accounts to deploy. So each one, it has its own account because, first of all, it's the best practice, right? From quotas level and for basically understanding what's the how much each service is costing you. It's much easier to understand that. So by going that route, you also increase complexity of cross-account access in cases where you need, for example, each new service requires a subdomain on the .cyberark.cloud domain. So it needs the subdomain, it needs certificate, and for the tenant manager, you need to sign and listen for a centralized SNS topic. So now you need to have an SQS that listens across multiple accounts. Sometimes you have a role delegation with IAM where you use IAM role to assume it and then gain access to another account resources or an API gateway, which is protected by an IAM authorizer.
So typically it's a Lambda function that needs to post a message in a queue in another account or read an object from S3 from another
like a
account.
Centralized pub sub. Yeah, so it started with the tenant management service, which is based, I think I wrote an article on AWS.com about how it's built and the whole process. Maybe we can link it in the end. Mm-hmm. So it uses SNS, basically like a regular pub sub. But each account gets its own message, then they handle the tenant provisioning. And this entire first connection, you need to do it. You need to exchange errands to edit to make sure that SNS allows this specific SQS to subscribe. And the problem is also you have multiple accounts because you have multiple environments. You have dev, test, stage, integration, pre-prod, production. And then you add regions. So back when it started 5 years ago, we had one region. Now we have over 10, 12, I don't remember how many. So you need to do this entire process so many times, and it gets complicated.
And in multiple dimensions, because as you said, you have all the process about giving access, creating policies, but then you have the dimensions of regions, and then you have the dimensions of environment. Yeah. So it's becoming... quite crazy, and that's the need you had to automate that.
Yeah, and you do it once, but you do it once per AWS account per region. And the way it used to work is it was just two members from the service you're trying to connect to, and the new service team, they're gonna have some time set for this, and they're going to create the resources, edit a JSON file with the trust relationship, and edit the ARNs. And then they're going to deploy the service and wait until the entire service is deployed. So you need to wait hours till it goes through all these accounts and updates the trust relationship. And then you need to exchange the errand back, and then he needs to make some changes. And then they need to test it. And it would take like 1 or 2 days to get it done just for like a one account or another.
Just for one. And you said at the beginning it's a multi-thousand people company, so I guess it's different teams managing these accounts, so you need to wait on another team to make a change on their service.
And you need to know, okay, I need to go to this JSON file for the tenant management service, but I need I need also to connect to the audit service, so I need to go to this repository to add it there, to open a PR there. I need to understand what's going on in their resources. One repo is SNS, SQS. One repo can be in IAM for CMK. It can get very complicated. People make mistakes. And the worst part is you never connect everything together all at once. You never deploy to 10 regions on the first day of your service. You never go to production on the first day. So you have intervals. You do it, you do one today, you do like in half a year, you add a region, then another region. So it never ends. And it's not great.
How did you tackle that challenge? So we understand the need to automate, and actually this is where the cloud shines, saying, okay, let's automate that. How did you design the high-level automation architecture for this solution?
So I think we can tackle it in a high-level overview, and then we can do the deep dive. So we did automate it. I'll give you like the TLDR. We automated it, It's bulletproof. It's no longer manual process. There's no way you're going to have ARN misconfigurations. And instead of days of people talking with each other and waiting for services to redeploy, it's a matter of minutes, like single minutes. You do it once and it works. And the greatest part about it is you don't need to schedule time with the platform engineering team. Once you have connection with this automation, you can just select and say, hey, I want to add today a new region, and you can just do it. Hey, I want to add production connection integration, and you can just do it. And you don't need to talk to anyone, and it just works. It's the magic.
Across multiple accounts, across multiple accounts,
across multiple regions. Yeah.
How does it work? Let's go into the details.
Okay. So first of all, I want to say that I open sourced it. So if anybody's really interested, there's a GitHub repository with CDK code in Python, and it works. And it has a CI/CD pipeline, and you can actually take it and use it. There's no secrets. So whatever I'm saying here, you can see it in the code.
It's real. You can touch it. You can try it on your side.
Yeah, it's real. You can use it. In the center of it lies AWS Service Catalog. It's a very nice, it's a neat serverless service. Have you heard of it? Have you heard of it?
Yes, but I'm not an expert. So what is a service catalog in high level helicopter view?
So Service Catalog is basically a service that allows you to, you can upload infrastructure as code templates, whether it's Terraform or CloudFormation templates. For us, it's CloudFormation templates that are generated from CDK, and you can version them. And it allows platform engineering teams like my team to basically have a mechanism to orchestrate and deploy these templates across the organization. And then you can basically get the governance and all the best practices that you want to ship in a really easy manner.
So it's a way to distribute CloudFormation templates across different part of my organization. I publish the official approved templates, and it's a self-service solution for the teams.
Yeah, and they're versioned. So this is also great to help you to manage it and upgrades and things like that. So the concepts are that you have a portfolio. A portfolio is basically a collection of products. And the product is a single CloudFormation template. Okay. So us in the platform, we have our platform portfolio and our products. We have two types of products. The first one is the trust, cross-account access trust product. These are magical templates that once you deploy them, and we're going to deep dive into what they actually do. When you deploy them, they initiate an automation, a serverless process, an event-driven serverless process that creates the cross-account access for you. So if you have, it can create an SQS and then subscribe it into the SNS trust relationship or things like that.
This means you have to authorize the service to create resource in other accounts as well. So there is like a one-time setup for service catalog.
So you're jumping to the low level.
Sorry.
but sure. I mean, in the end, I think when you look at the developer experience, what the teams are getting, so instead of having to go through, like what I said before, lots of services and opening PRs and exchanging NRNs and deploying their services and then going all through that, they get a GitHub template repository that they use. It's a black box. It's a black box CDK constructs with a pipeline. You deploy it, and it deploys whatever you want it to do according to a very simple configuration. The JSON configuration is all that they know. They don't care about the code that it does there. The JSON says, I want to connect to tenant management. I want to connect to audit service in dev account or in production or in integration in regions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here are the parameters if I need to supply them or whatever. Then you open, if you want to add the region, you just edit the JSON file, create a pull request. Everything here is done by changes that are supervised by engineers, and it's regulated like we need it for regulation also when you deploy to production. So there's a GitHub PR, somebody approves it, and the deployment starts. And then after several minutes, the connection is done, and now we have the integration with that service, whatever that may be. That's the developer experience, and they don't need to talk to us. They don't need to schedule times for the ARN exchanges. It's super secure. Yeah, it's just secure.
And secure because the security is built into the pipeline that will deploy the resource. The pipeline, so there's no manual.
And it's built, and it's built into the products. So the products are, they make sure that everything is secure. And that's the magic. We had really good feedbacks from people using it. It's part of like a larger automation that we've built. I'll give you the headline. Like we're able to build a hello world production ready service with our automation, and basically it reduced 18 weeks of work into a 3 hours automation. And this IAM automation is part of those 3 hours. Inside it also does the SaaS control plane connections.
So it's one of the many automation you put in place to deploy your service. But let me repeat that: 18 days down to
18 weeks.
18 weeks.
18 weeks.
That's even worse.
Yeah.
Better. 18 weeks down to a couple of minutes.
3 hours. Yeah.
3 hours.
And then you get a service with a back end, front end, fully working CI/CD pipeline, all the best practices, observability built in, feature flags, canary deployments, and connection to the SaaS control plane across 2 regions and 3 environments in less than 3 hours. That was my pet project for over a year, with many good people working with us on this. It's been a tremendous effort here at CyberArk.
That's why I love the platform engineering teams. It's when you build this type of automation. It's great that you start from the developer experience. So one of the team willing to establish a new connection to a service in a new account and to start the automation. Let's go back to what's happening inside. As a developer or a team member, I trigger the GitHub approval. It's approved, and then what?
Okay. So we'll need to imagine it together. I'll do my best because we don't have I can't share a diagram here.
This is where a diagram would help, yes.
Yeah. So I can say that there is a diagram in the GitHub repository if you're looking for one. But the idea here is that what the pipeline does is it imports the platform portfolio, and it understands which products it needs to deploy, what is the version that we're going to deploy, and it starts their deployment one by one. So each product is a CloudFormation stack. So let's take a look at like one of the products. Let's assume that we want to connect an SQS on our account to the tenant management SNS on a different account. So what would happen is that this stack would create the SQS queue, and then it would create a CloudFormation custom resource. This CloudFormation custom resource takes the input of the SQS queue and sends it over, sends an SNS message to the platform account. Now at this point, the deployment is waiting. It's in a wait state until we release it from its wait state. So what happens on the SNS? It's going to pass it to an SQS queue, and then it's going to trigger a Lambda function. This Lambda function will have now in its hand the information, which account it came from, what is the team. These are one of the parameters that you deploy. So we know who you are, and we need it to basically for visibility purposes.
Auditing.
Yeah, I mean, it's also great for platform adoption. We in the platform want to know who's adopting which services across what regions, what accounts. And this is something that was missing with Service Catalog, and we built it on top of the Service Catalog and this serverless automation. So this Lambda can basically take all this information, all this metadata, and save it into a DynamoDB table, a global table, and then we have for each product deployment, we have the metadata information across multiple regions, and we know exactly team A is integrated with tenant management and audit service across these regions and these accounts. And when they add a new region, we're going to add it to the table, and we created reports on top of it, so we know exactly what's going on. You get the point. But that's not what you're.
That's not the point for today. Yeah. We are in the management account, and we receive the ARN of the queue that has been created on the end user account, or the team account.
So in the open source, I provided a simplified version. So I'll first say that. So let's assume that the SNS message is sent to the account of the tenant management service. So now we have the Lambda in the tenant management service. It gets on one hand the SQS ARN that we've just created in our new service account, and it knows what is the SNS topic ARN. So now we can do the magic, which is basically, instead of what we did before, which is editing its trust relationship via JSON files and redeploying, it does an API call, edit trust relationship, and it appends the new SQS ARN to this trust relationship and subscribes it. So I think trust relationship is not a correct term. I think trust relationship is for IAM, but for SNS, it just makes sure that it can subscribe to it. Okay, but for an IAM role, it can edit the trust relationship, and then they can do the assume role. So by doing this API call, the SQS that we've just created it's actually subscribed to the SNS. Now what the Lambda is going to do is send whatever other parameters we want to send back and release the custom resource from its wait state.
Mm-hmm.
And when it sends back, so the Lambda, it sends back to the custom resource. It can send it all sorts of information. And then this information is written to an SSM parameter store. So
on the team account, on the end user account?
Yeah, on the team account. So this is information that they can use in their own code when they're using the resources. For example, for their CDK code, they can use it to find the SQS ARN that we've just created for them. Or if they need to assume a role if it's the role delegation process, then I can publish them the role ARN that they need to assume, or the external ID that they need to use. So I can also help them basically
to discover.
Do the second because just because you have the trust relationship or you just subscribed to the SNS, it still means you still need to write the Lambda code that does something with it. So they need it either in deploy time or in runtime to know these parameters. And then this is basically how it ties it up. So now you have everything that you need to do on your end to finish the integration.
Let me try to recap just to be sure I understand correctly. Yeah. As an end user, so a technical team inside your company, I want to create a new account that has resource that will be able to talk to your management account. That's how you call it, or the tenant management account.
Yeah, sure.
So I select my product from a service catalog, which triggers CloudFormation, which triggers a custom resource, so a Lambda function inside my account. That will communicate with your account so that your account can edit the trust relationship and
or
set up,
subscribe to the SQS or
subscribe
whatever.
And do whatever it needs on the resource.
But
also store it in a database. So you have like a catalog of all the resources that have been created in different databases. We call it the
visibility database.
Mm-hmm.
And then lastly, it also publishes whatever parameters you need to know about in your SSM parameter store.
Back to my end user original account, so I know how to use it. So if I need to assume a specific role on your account to be able to send a message, for example, I know the name of the role or the ARN of the role.
These are predefined names that we provide in our documentation, and then you can use in your CDK code, you can find them and set them as environment variables or use them in runtime and fetch them for the SSM in your Lambda function. And the trust is already there. We just build the framework, the infrastructure, so you can make that connection.
In the open source project on GitHub, what are the type of resource you do support today?
In the open source, I provided an example of a REST API protected with a Lambda function integration with an IAM authorizer. And what it does, it publishes a role in your account, that you can then assume, and then from there you can assume another role in the other account and get access to that API gateway. So you get like a mediator role that you assume, and from there you assume the role in the other account, and then you can trigger the API gateway.
Gateway protected with IAM, I guess.
IAM, exactly.
Roles. Okay. Yeah, that's a very common use case. I guess a Lambda function needs to call an API, a private API protected with IAM.
I mean, the concept is very pretty much the same. I mean, you can also use this automation for other things that are not really unrelated. You can do it to create certificates or hosted zones or DNS entries in other accounts. It's just a nice automation.
So there is one example in the repo, in the public open source repo, to access API gateway. What are the other resources you're using it? You're using internally. You mentioned SNS and SQS. Is there others?
Yeah, so we use it to create hosted zones and subdomains for the services, certificates. Basically, IAM role delegation. And I think the SQS SNS is also a regular pattern. I mean, when you have a role delegation, pretty much covers many of the use cases because you don't really know what the role is going to do, right? It's just a role. The role gives you access to whatever actions you need to do on the other account.
It seems to be a fairly common technical challenge to tackle in a multi-account and multi-region is common for many AWS customer. Is there any other solution? Why did you have to write your own solution? Is there something that exists already, or maybe it was not a good fit, or just there is nothing and everybody is doing manually right now?
I've been asking around and everybody's been doing manually. I mean, just one time, and people are, yeah, sure, we do it one time. But then when you think about it at the organizational scale, yeah, it's one time, and then everybody's doing this one time, and then again in other accounts. I didn't find better solutions. I didn't find any better alternatives, so we just built it, to be honest.
And you're demonstrating that during public talks as well, at conference and blog posts.
Yeah. That's why I came to you, Sebastian, to spread the news.
Well, now that you are using this system live in production in a CyberArk environment, what are the improvement that you see, or the things you want to add to such a system?
So first of all, we did get really good feedback from the people, and the fact that they don't need to think about it and it just works, that's great. And in some cases, we also give them the day two operations, like for tenant management, we also give them a blueprint that knows how to use those SSM parameter stores and answer messages from the SNS and reply back. And then they can just extend that logic when their service changes. So I think this is also important. But we've also started to use a service catalog and this automation for other things that are not really trust related. So you don't need to have all this Lambda editing, IAM roles and things like that. It's much simpler. We use it for, I think that's the proper use case that service catalog, they had in mind when they wrote their service. So it's just black boxes for governance and best practices. For example, we're basically exporting our CloudWatch logs to Datadog. And the reason we do that and not just send them, because we want to filter out any logs that we don't want to send, or try to filter out PII. And we want to have really strong understanding of what logs we send and why we send them. And we want to make sure we don't send any logs that are not supposed to be sent or contain information that shouldn't be there. And also we enrich the logs with other information that the Lambda didn't have. And we do that by I wrote a blog post about it. I usually have a blog post about these things.
and the link is in the podcast application, of course. You just scroll down. You can read that blog post. You also mentioned you have a large, you call it the visibility database, where you collect all these events and all these resources. Are you thinking about exploiting the data in that database? Because it's a gold mine of resource to document your system, to create diagrams and things like that.
We built now. The team leader actually built a very nice automation around it, where you can say once a month, send me an email. Just scan that database and send me an email to understand what's going on, how many services are adopted, or maybe we can send it to. We can build analytics around it, over time. These are things that we need to think about how we're going to do it. But yeah, I mean, this information is really important for us, and it's been really hard to get it in the previous implementation. It used to be hidden inside JSON files across multiple repositories, where you had to go into each JSON file and see that team A is integrating here, team B is here, and then you need to create your own manual Excel. Here it's done for you. You get an email with a nice Excel with all the information.
As soon as you say Excel, you lost me in terms of automation and reporting. It's all open source. It's on GitHub, and the link is available, of course, in the notes of this podcast. Are you accepting contribution, issues, PR, documentation?
Sure. Yeah.
Did you receive already? There is like some community work involved around this solution, or that's the plan?
I hope so. I mean, I think this is the proper time that I really discuss this automation in detail. I did talk about it in a DevOps conference in Israel, I think a month ago. It did get some stars, but it's not an easy solution. When you look at it the first time, you see multiple files and lots of things going on, but when you really deep dive, you see it's really just a Lego building of some serverless services. There's nothing really too fancy here.
And I have a side question that is not related, but I see in your README file that you're using a tool that I don't know about. What is Poetry?
Poetry. That's the Python dependencies management library.
It's a replacement of pip? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. It's faster and better.
I'm not writing enough Python code, then that's why I don't know it. Do you want to add something besides go to the GitHub repo, try it, implement it by yourself, and see how it can help you to reduce your deployment time?
Just a shout out about my website, runthebuilder.cloud. I have lots of technical articles about serverless, security, and AWS in general. And yeah, check it out.
It's a goldmine of resource and reading as well. You have a talk at reInvent. So reInvent is the AWS customer conference happening first week of December in Las Vegas. You have a talk with my colleague Julian Wood.
The one and only Julian Wood.
The one and only.
Yeah.
What is it about?
Serverless best practices for developers, SVS 401.
And I will put a link to the session detail. You need to be authenticated on the reInvent website to read the details, but you will get the time and the room as well. Thank you, Ran, for walking us through your solution to automate the deployment of resource across multiple AWS accounts and multiple AWS region. It's difficult to summarize in one phrase. Thank you for having listened this episode until the end. See you next week. But now, go build.